Good morning, everyone, and once again, welcome to another edition of the OCA Indoor Road Race Series of virtual racing here on the Zwift platform. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Paradowski, and once again, I will be your host today. Just want to thank everyone for coming to the channel today and watching the exciting action happening here in the Zwift world. If everyone has had a chance to like and subscribe to the channel, be sure to do so sometime during the event today and click that little bell button to make sure that you get notified every time we go live. And of course, also, if you like what you see here and you want to support the channel, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events. That's ARCEVENTS. And donate a little something, maybe a little coffee. It'll help keep the channel running and moving on forward. So with that, I'd like to introduce our guest for today. Today, once again, we have the venerable Steve Fleck joining us live from Aurora via the Zoom platform. Steve, how's it going today?
It is going well, Andrew. Great to be back with you once again. I do apologize for being absent last weekend. I was hosting a virtual triathlon training conference, but very pleased to be back sharing the microphone with you today for OCA Indoor Series race number 7.
Very good. And it looks like we are just about 2 minutes away to the start of the A race. We've got quite a few competitors lined up on the UCI Richmond World course that we've selected for our competitors today. However, most of them are not part of the Ontario Cycling Association's Indoor Road Race Series. It seems to be we have over 150 competitors from Chile participating with us today. Who knows why that happened, but it certainly is something.
Makes it a truly international event, Andrew.
That it does. And I can imagine that there's going to be an interesting start and even rollout for the A groupers today. We don't see this in any of the other races, but having this many competitors not in part of our race will certainly change the dynamics. So with a minute and a half left, I'll hand it over to you, Steve, to introduce the few Canadian riders we do have in our race today.
That's true. The Canadians of note in this Zwift A race, they are racing in the Zwift A power category. Bruce Bird from Wheels of Bloor, Greg Beaulieu from Velocic Silber, Eric Deere from University of Toronto Racing, Kaj Johnson from the CCF Racing Club, Matthew Owens from Veloselect Silber, Laurent Orisser from Bateman's Bike Shop, also from Bateman's Bike Shop, Andrew Buzzell, Adam Hawley from the Waterloo Cycling Club, Brad Parsons from Techie Kids, Jojo Risnick from Cryogen, and Oaken Woke from Flowy Velo. So the Zwift A category, Andrew, is really a combination of the Elite 1 and 2 men and the Master 1 men in the true OCA categories.
That's right, and most of those riders, as many of you know, are some of our top series points leaders as well, and we'll get to that sometime throughout the racing and let everybody know what the standings are. So taking a look over here at the race, we've got everyone lined up there. You can see my avatar in the bright black and yellow of the B jersey here on my mountain bike, waiting to be left behind in the corral as we have 15 seconds left for the start of the A race. So gentlemen, get your engines ready, get that wattage up as we are about to start race number 7 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're off. Gonna find one of our Canadian riders here in this list as we put it back to you, Steve, and let us introduce our B riders.
Yes, the B riders, a slightly bigger field. We've got 20 riders in total. James Allison from the Morning Glory Club, Oliver Conway White from Faction Racing, Noah Cornish from the Uxbridge Cycling Club, Isaac Dobos from Bonafide Ride, love the name of that club, Brendan Henry from the Morning Glory as well, Philip Major from the Lap Dogs, Graham Page from 613 Cycling, Matt Randall from Bateman's Bike Shop, Michael Bobu and Derek D'Angelo from the Sudbury Cycling Club, Rusty Fisher from NCCH, Brian Kingston from 613 Cycling, Justin Kitney from Dirt, Michael McLennan from Dark Horse Flyers, Enrico Magnani from Movati Stages Racing, Diego Mea from Bateman's Bike Shop, David Moyer from the Independent, Donovan Pollitt from Morning Glory Cycling Club, also racing independent, Roy Thomas and Rob Visser. This is Zwift B, so in the true OCA categories, this is a combination of the Elite 3 men and the Master 2 men, Andrew.
Yes, and quite a few of our strong riders still coming out, even though the weather is getting a little better for riders outside. it is still an attraction for some to come in and race with us today. Just looking at the race clock right now, looks like there's about 30 seconds left for the start of the B race, so we have everyone in the corral and ready to go here. Unfortunately, we don't have footage of the rest of the start, so you'll have to put up with us for a few minutes as we get everybody going. 20 seconds now for our B racers. As Steve said, Elite 3, Master 2, and 3 more starts after this. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're off. The B racers have now hitting the course on the famed and venerable 2015 UCI Richmond World Championship course. Steve, tell us a little bit about the next group coming up on course.
Yeah, this will be Zwift D category, Andrew. It's a smaller group, 7 going here. This would be sort of the Sportif category, the beginner category, if you will, for those just starting out in racing. Jeff Kwan, he'll be racing independent. Ian Nenner from the Sudbury Cycling Club. Lucas Gates from the KW Cycling Academy. Tegan Gaughan, another KW Cycling Academy rider. Lillian Pelosa from Attack Racing. Joshua Cooper, also from Attack Racing, and Henrique Martins from OBC. And again, these would be equivalent to the youth categories, Sportif, as I mentioned, and the U15 and U17 men and women. This is Zwift D, 2.49 watts per kilogram in Zwift power.
Yeah, so it's looking like we're having an interesting battle between Pelosa and Gagne. They're 2 of our U15 women participating in this race. Gagne is a late entry into the series, so she has a bit of a gap to make up with Lillian Pelosa, but it'll be interesting to see how the 2 of them fare in the next 2 races coming up. Unfortunately, it's not the largest turnout for our youth riders in the series had we hoped for. There are some other exciting opportunities, as we had mentioned before, for our youth riders in Canada. There is the race series that Cycling Saskatchewan has put on for a national event. So a lot of our youth riders are choosing to participate in that race. But it's good to see the ones that are coming out here, still coming out week after week. So we're glad to have you here. Looks like we are about 30 seconds to go for the start. Actually, we're about to start in about 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, the C races are off. Apologies for the clock there. I only have the Master A men and, the Master 1, Elite 1, 2 men. And for some reason, the clocks always seem to be 15 to 20 seconds off. I'm just looking at my riding colleague here, Chantel Thompson, in the studio, taking the the Elite 3 women out today on the E race. Hopefully we can catch her for an interview later in the day, but she's there to help provide results and some of the other technical support here for the race. So, Steve, tell us about the D racers coming up.
I think it's the E we're going with now. This would be the women. Want to check on that?
No, we actually, you know what? We read the D's earlier, so why don't we read the C's now? Because I think we skipped over the C's.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. We missed the C's. Okay, my apologies. The C category: Jamie Reiner from Independent, Conan Shing from the Morning Glory Cycling Club, Adam Smart from OBC, Dennis Boulan from Sudbury Cycling, Luc Fonchet, Glenn Gunderman, and Mark Jacques, all racing independent, Albert Klinkink from the KW Cycling Academy, Batista Maruda from Sudbury Cycling, David Ord, he's racing independent, Michael Orr from the Newmarket Eagles, another Eagles rider, Tony Peters, Chuck Taylor, the cyclist, not the shoe, from the St. Catharines Cycling Club, William Trishik from Attack Racing, Jesse Sang from Friction Racing, Steve Wall, he's racing independent, and Hassine Weeb from the Sudbury Cycling Club. And the C category in Zwift racing correlates to the Elite 4 and Master 3 men for the OCA categories, Andrew.
All right, great, Steve. Thank you very much. We're now 10 seconds away from the start of our D racers, so riders, get your engines ready. Get that wattage up. Spin nice and hard in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're off. One more race to go. Steve, let us know about it.
Yes, that's right. Sorry for mixing up the entries and the starts. I do apologize for that. Indeed, we are going now with the Zwift E. This is all women Masters categories, and Elite 1 and 2 women. Arian Arsenault from Dynamiques de Contrecoeur, Holly Clark from the Toronto Hustle, Gabby Eady from Highgate Racing, Evelyn Gagnon from Shadow Elite, Franny Jewett from Highgate Racing leading the Senior 1-2 category, Dylan Baker from Attack Racing, Isabella Catherine from the KW Cycling Academy, Rosa Phillip from the Midweek Cycling Club, Chantel Thompson from Midweek, Paulina Allen leading the Masters points category in the series from Highgate Racing, Anne-Marie Carter McCausland, Kelly Cullen from Spoke Emotion, Sarah Elliott from Highgate Racing, Marija Gonzalez Najira, also from Highgate Racing, Shauna Novak, Racing Independent, Nancy Schmeller from Highgate Racing, Hannah Spence, also from Highgate Racing, and Anna Tikulitz from Coach Chris. That is your field for the Zwift E race. And as I mentioned, this is all women. So this is Elite 1 and 2 women, Elite 3 women, and the Master women all going in one mass start here in the E category. Andrew.
Yes, we have quite a large women's field. That's always great to see. Good support here for women's racing virtually in Ontario. We got a question on the live feed chat asking when actual racing will be viewable on the screen. Once again, apologies to everyone that we're only able to follow one race at a time, and the starts are only available for that one given race. So unfortunately for the starting, there's no racing to watch. But after we start with the women's race, we're certainly going to go and show you some racing. All right, here we go. 15 seconds to the start of our final wave of the day. Our women's Master Women, Elite 3 and Elite 1 and 2 women. And get your engines going. Get that wattage up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And they're off. All 5 categories now on course here at the virtual version of the 2015 UCI World Championship course in Richmond, Virginia, United States. And with that, Steve, let's head on over to the live racing of the A race. As you can see, we have quite a bit of action going here right now. The large group is still together on course. I currently have Jojo Rusinek from Cryogen in my sights, and he's sitting about mid-pack, 30 places or so back. Let's take a nice big aerial view and take a look at that large pack. So indeed, with over 150, almost 200 starters in this race, it certainly is going to be a large pack for quite a while. And we'll have to pay attention for those logos and names as we're circulating around to see how well our Ontario riders are doing. I can see Kai Johnson and Bruce Bird and Brad Parsons and who else do we have here? Anton Varabai is in the group as well. So it looks like our top riders in both the Masters and E1-2 category have been able to hold on to the break. If you look at the map on the top right of the screen there, you can see, if I can zoom in on that, this is the large group with red and the little blue icon in there heading towards the green banner. And if you zoom out from this group, you can see there are quite a few red groups behind. So it's not a full peloton. A lot of riders have been shut off the back, but I suspect that most of our top racers are in this front group here. Steve?
Well, the early part of this course, the loop that they are doing today, Andrew, the famous 2015 UCI Road course in Richmond, fairly flat, but with a lot of twists and turns. Not so much a problem racing in Zwift, but certainly racing on the real road with all those twists and turns can be problematic with such a large group like this. The real challenging climbs come in the back half of this course with a punishing climb up the famous cobbled climb where Peter Sagan made his winning move in the senior men's race at the 2015 Road World Championships. And that comes right at the end within the final kilometer of the finish line. So that is your cue for the ultimate finale, is that cobbled climb up to the flat run into the finish.
Yeah, and it's certainly necessary to have that kind of selection and challenge in a course like this. The circuit length is approximately 16 kilometers. So that's on the shorter end of what a road race really should be in terms of a circuit race. I believe the regulations state a 12-kilometer circuit is sort of the minimum you want to go, with 10 being the absolute hard minimum. And we saw here in Canada a few years ago what happens when you have a really, really short circuit without a lot of selection or challenge on the course. If you recall, Steve, the national championships in Ottawa, Gatineau, a few years ago, the road race was in Ottawa in sort of roughly the downtown area, much like this, that took advantage of Tunney's pasture as well as some of the parkway system around there. And that course was bang on the dot, 10 8.0 kilometers. And what happened, I believe it was the first year, there was a breakaway of a dozen or 15 or so riders who managed to put so much distance on the pack that they ended up lapping the field in 10 kilometers. And, a hard reading of the regulations there state that, the entire field needs to be pulled because they've basically been lapped on the course. And that is, I believe, what did happen. I know the timing crew there were frantically trying to score all those riders so that they could end up placing them to make sure that UCI points depth could get placed. So you can see how there is a challenge on a short circuit like this, and it's good that Richmond does have these real punchy climbs with some cobbled sections to thin the herd out and prevent something like that from happening.
Yeah, but those climbs, Andrew, not coming until the back half of the 16K loop, so they're coming just up on that now. The visuals on the sidelines, for those watching on the Zwift and the YouTube stream, it's kind of industrial. They're going under bridges and going through a bit of an industrial area in Richmond, Virginia, not too far away from the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., but that cobbled climb coming within 500 kilometers of the finish, and that should be the potential separating out of this leading group that we are seeing in the A race as they come up there. And as you had mentioned, Andrew, a huge number of Chilean visiting riders racing with us today, and they are occupying a large amount of space in that leading group.
They sure are, Steve, and there's bound to be quite a bit of action happening in this race because of that feature. So why don't we leave the A racers alone for a little bit and head on over and check out what our B racers are doing. But while we are doing that, why don't you let us know how the two categories in the B race are doing vis-a-vis series points?
Exactly. The series points in that category, and again, this is the Elite 3 men and the Master 2 men. And in the Master 2 men's points, Rusty Fisher is currently in lead from the NCCH. Ryan Lyons is in second, and Todd Reed is in first place. This is a pretty hotly contested division, Andrew. The top three separated by only 2 points, and it's a tie for first place with Fisher and Lyons in that particular category. That is the Master 2 category. And then in the Elite 3 men, Graham Page from 613 Cycling is currently in the lead with 139 points. Yanni Beck is in second with 120. And Brenton Henry from Morning Glory Cycling Club, largest cycling club in Canada, sitting in third place, 108. And Phil Major from Lapdogs just lurking behind in fourth, only 4 points back of Henry. But Graham Page starting to eke out a bit of a commanding lead in that Elite 3 men's points category. These are the OCA points categories, Andrew.
All right, thanks for that, Steve. And I've got the leader of our B race here. Once again, no surprise, it is Enrico Magnani. So let's take a look at what's happening over there in the B race. On screen right now, we have the lead bunch. Here, and I've got Enrico inside. Benton Henry is also with them, Derek D'Angelo, and quite a few of our B riders, but it looks like they have mixed up with some of the A riders who have fallen off the back.
Well, we're going to get mixing of riders, Andrew, as you mentioned, on a 16-kilometer course. There will be a mixing of riders, and this could become not so much an issue for the men's categories, but for the women's categories could become a bit of a factor as they mix in with the men's. There's nothing really we can do about this. They did start separately, but the mixing, on the race course will create opportunities for some of the women if they can sort of mix in with the men. It truly starts to become a bit more of an open racing format, not unlike you would see in a Gran Fondo open style of racing for the women.
That is true. It is one of the limitations of doing racing on this platform. At the moment, we don't have the ability to restrict entry into the circuit, which is why you see in the A race with all these Chilean riders here. If we were able to do that, then we could certainly have a Ontario-only race. But it does have its ups and downs. In some cases, I have heard from some of the riders who are doing this from a real participation point of view, like they're happy to finish the race. It's nice for them to have other people off the back to ride with as well, instead of just slogging up a climb all by themselves and feeling truly defeated. So there are pros and cons to this whole thing. But it's certainly a work in progress. Quite interesting on the screen right now, watching many riders pulling Harry Potter through the central pillars of that building that they were just going through. I guess that's the way to get into Hogwarts from that point of view. So, looking like they're coming around the big corner here, the big hairpin turn, with most of our Canadian riders still with that group. So it looks like there hasn't been a hell of a lot of selection for the B group at this point.
Yeah, there's two of these very technical hairpin turns at either end of the loop. If you're looking at a true aerial shot of the course, it's almost 180-degree turn at one end, and then another 180-degree turn at the far end of the loop. It's an elongated, roughly 8-kilometer long loop with a total of 16 kilometers when you do it out and back.
Yeah, and it looks like they just hit a KOM marker. Or excuse me, that's the A group. This is, again, the one problem with having the A's being the primary focus for my Zwift application is that I keep getting pop-ups. So it looks like the A group had hit that cobbled climb that you talk about. So we shouldn't be that far back. It looks like we're coming up to a real twisty section here with some switchbacks. So I suppose, and you can see all these riders putting on their feathers, and the gradient has to do about 8%. So I think this is that one of those big climbs that we've just been speaking about here.
That's right. And this is where the gamification, Andrew, if you will, of Zwift racing starts to become really important. When do you use the various power-ups, and how do you use them based on your own strengths and weaknesses and those of those who you're racing against? It's a critical choice that racers use. You don't want to use too many of them too soon and save them for critical points on the course where, just like you would in real road racing, you want to take a real advantage, of the situation. And that group now onto the cobbled climb. And some of the advanced trainers, Andrew, like the Tax Neo, it's got programmed right into the Tax Neo software linked up to Zwift. They could feel those cobbles actually if you're using one of the Tax Neo smart trainers, you can feel the cobbles as you go over them if you're using that trainer. Most other trainers don't have it. That's a feature just on the Tax Neo. Probably the most expensive trainer on the market. I think it's about $2,000. Yeah,
they can get up there. I think even Tax has a trainer that's kind of like a treadmill for runners, where you would ride on the treadmill on your bike, and it's got sensors all around to know if your bike's still on it and stuff, and motors in the front that can raise and lower the action there to give you a more kind of like a real feel. I don't even want to know how much that thing costs. It's probably too expensive if you have to ask.
It's very expensive. If you want to know more, I'm not very tech, and I know you're very tech in terms of getting this all organized, Andrew. But if you want to know more about tech, like bike training tech, Rainmaker's website, dcrainmaker.com, is a place to go. Ray is the guru for all that kind of stuff, and he reviews all these kind of things like the indoor trainer, the Zwift software, the integration, all of that. dcrainmaker.com is a place to go for all of that super high-tech training stuff review.
And I'm sure he'll be happy for that plug. I have been looking at his site every once in a while. He does have some good reviews, even some amusing ones. I do recall seeing one that had to do with a kid riding one of those plastic toy bikes on a trainer or something to that effect. So he does know how to be humorous as well as serious when it comes to the training. So we just saw our B racers there come through the finish line after that famed cobbled climb. You can certainly see where that can be an advantage, attacking on that climb and getting into that final section as Sagan did those years ago. So it certainly will be an interesting race as it moves along. So one lap down for the Bs. Why don't we head on over to our C group and check out what is happening with those guys. Steve, let me know what's happening in the points for our C racers.
Yeah, so the C category, Andrew, this is in OCA category. This is Elite 4 men and Master 3 men. And just getting to the list. So the Master 3 men. It is in the lead, Batista Moretta from the Sudbury Cycling Club with 207 points. He is a commanding lead, Batista Moretta does in that category. Chuck Taylor from St. Catherine Cycling Club is sitting in second with 161 points. And William Trischuk, a good friend of ours, Andrew, sitting in a comfortable third spot with 154 points. Those are your top three in the Master 3 men. And in the Elite 4 category, James Allison from the Morning Glory Cycling Club is sitting in first spot with 100 points. Adam Smart from OBC in second with 94. And Isaac Dobos from the Bonafide Ride Club is in third with 88 points. So that is your Elite 4 category men. These are the OCA categories, again, as opposed to the Zwift Power categories, which they actually race on the road, the virtual road in Zwift racing. That comprises the C category.
One of the interesting things about that list there on the Elite 4 men is two of those riders have actually recently been virtually upgraded to the Elite 3 men's field. Both James Allison from Morning Glory and Isaac Dobos from Bonafide Ride had been doing very well, and their wattage basically put them up into the Elite 3 race. So they'll be racing today and next week in the Elite 3 category, leaving some room for Adam Smart from OBC to take over and come in first place in the series with a possible upset from Matt Randall, who actually, I believe, also isn't even in this category. So there are 3 riders in the top 4 now who aren't even in the E4 anymore. So if there are some racers in E4 who are looking to move up, now is certainly the time.
Yeah, good opportunity. And the upper limit, just for reference point, Andrew, for the wattage in the C category is 3.19 watts per kilogram. And once you go over that, you will get pushed up to the next Zwift category, which is the Zwift B. And then the upper limit there is 3.99 watts per kilogram. So anything less than 4 watts per kilogram, you are allowed to race in the Zwift B. Go beyond that, and you're racing with the big boys in the Zwift A.
There you go. Turning our eyes on now to our C groupers. I've got our points leader, Batista Moretta, who is now on the famed cobble climb, sitting roughly 9th overall in the group with a few of our other C racers. Conan Shing, Chuck Taylor are a little bit ahead of him, moving up and down. William Trischuk is there as well. Glenn Gunderman, and we've got one of our Movati Stages riders. Always hard to read when you have a nice long Zwift name, who the riders are. But the interface is what it is, as Moretta tops the cobble climb and is heading into the final section before the sprint. So we'll see if he can hold on to his performance today as well and add to that commanding lead he has.
Yeah, looking good up that climb right to the finish line. Good morning, Rob Visser. I see Rob has chimed in with a comment, Andrew, on the chat.
Yeah, Rob Visser was our guest host last week. Steve, you were busy doing something with triathlon, I believe it was.
I was actually hosting a virtual worldwide conference. It was over 1,000 attendees. It was a fundraiser for the USA Triathlon Foundation, and they asked me in at the last minute to MC it. It was a wonderful weekend of great talks, interesting insight in terms of where the sport of triathlon is at right now, training. Big panel on diversity, and of course, very topical right now with all that's going on in the world, inclusion and diversity. Just generally in endurance sports, I don't want to get into all the politics of it right now, but we could all do probably a better job of making all of the endurance sports, running, cycling, triathlon, more inclusive and more diverse. So there's my little political statement for the day.
There you go. We had Rob join us last week as well on the bike. Rob is one of our consummate racers here. He's doing very well himself in the series. He took the time to talk about how the race was going from his perspective. So thanks for that, Rob. I really appreciate that. got Steve Fleck back helping out on the announcement duties of this week. So Steve, thanks for coming out. On screen right now, we have our C riders again. We're looking at William Trishuk, one of our friends and fellow race commissaires. He does officiate in bike racing as well, so he's a double threat for sure when it comes to racing and officiating. He's doing well right now, sitting 12th overall. It looked like the group was getting fairly split up after that climb, but I think it is starting to come a little bit back together, even though we're on another climb here and it may separate as well. It looks like the C race will certainly feel a bit more selection at this point than the B or the A's have so far.
And again, heading out onto the front side of the loop, Andrew, it's fairly flat, but lots of twists and turns, on the road. And one thing I know that Zwift is working on, technologically speaking, in the background, is the possibility that they might introduce steering into this programming in the software. Of course, that would require specific hardware at home for that. I know they have that in the car racing, the Formula One car racing. Of course, you do need to steer those cars around the track properly. And there is a possibility they will be introducing that to Zwift racing sometime, in the next year.
Yes, the technology is certainly getting better as we move along, and more opportunities to do really neat things. For those of you who are familiar with the website called Zwift Insider, that's a place to go to get all the muck that is fit to rake in regards to virtual racing, especially on Zwift. Great website, lots of tips and tricks about the courses, as well as news and info coming up about it. And one item that appeared on the website recently was a rumor that the Tour de France was looking at hosting a mini Zwift Tour de France over multiple weekends and inviting all the pro teams to do that. I haven't followed up on that since I read it earlier this week, but that would certainly be something interesting if we had all the pro teams here in the virtual world competing for an abbreviated Tour de France.
That would be fun, although the UCI has announced a more or less compact schedule. They're going to try and pack almost a full season of European racing into 2.5 months, starting towards the end of August this year, with 3 Grand Tours and most of the monuments all included. If they do get to it, and it's still a question mark in some people's minds whether or not it'll actually happen, but kudos to the UCI for at least trying to put the schedule together. Some interesting protocols and procedures will have to take place to make it happen, for the safety of racers, for the safety of team staff, for the safety of spectators. But if you go to the UCI website, you can see those schedules for both the women and the men. The nice news about the women is the women will get to race Paris-Roubaix at the Pro Tour level and the World Tour level for the first time. So that's good news. And just a bit of a plug, I will be possibly doing some of the commentary for Flow Sports. Flow Sports bought the North American streaming rights for all of the Pro Tour races for North America. So if that UCI schedule does get back going again, you could possibly see all of those Pro Tour races streamed live in North America on Flow Sports, Flow Bikes.
Well, that would be really interesting and awesome if you do some of that commentary. It's a good thing you're getting a little bit of practice here at these low-level races, so that you're going to sound super sharp when you do those races there for Flow Bikes. So why don't we head on over now to our D racers. Let me just bring us up back here again. Steve, why don't you introduce our D racers once again and let us know how they are all doing in the series.
Yes, the D racers. So this is our youth category in the Sportif category for all intents and purposes, Andrew. This is the U17 men and women, U15 men and women, and as I mentioned, the Sportif or open category for new racers. Lillian Pelosa is leading the U15 women. Tegan Gaughan is in second, and Alex Fanget is in third. That's the U15 women. U15 men, Lucas Gates from the KW Cycling Academy is in first. Antoine Bergeron from NCCH in second, and Sagan Gates in third. close racing there between those three, just 10 points separating them at the top of the leaderboard. Switching over to the U17 women, we just have one rider listed in the points here. It's Abby Rankel from Woodstock Racing. She's only raced in 2 races so far this year, so she owns that category. And then in the U17 men, Joshua Cooper from Attack Racing, Enrique Martins from OBC. Cooper's in first, Martins is in second, and Lucas Norman is in third. This is a closely contested category as well between the 3 leaders, Cooper's, Martins, and Norman, U17 men. And then last but certainly not least, the beginner or Sportif category, Jared Rowerda from NCCH in the lead, Bill Clark in second, Thomas Fangeet from the KW Cycling Academy in third. Rowerda's got 64 points, Clark 44, and Fangeet 37. So that is your D category in Zwift racing. And that leaves the women, which we will get to shortly, I believe, Andrew.
Very good. And it looks like I have found one of our D riders. It's our points leader in the U15 race. Let's head on over to Zwift and check out Lillian Pelosa on course right now. She is currently sitting 10th overall in the group of D riders. Quite a few other riders mixed up here. I can see some A's and some C's and D's. So this is certainly that situation that you had described earlier, Steve, with riders joining other groups as the separation begins throughout the race.
Exactement, en français. Exactly, as you said, Andrew, the mixing out on the course, and with the early power needed to get out in front, it really split things up a lot in the outgoing. That's an interesting shot that you just saw on screen a few moments ago. There are sections of this course where they're going one way on the road in Richmond, and then they're going the other way on the other side. It's a large boulevard with trees in the middle, and you've got racing going back and forth on both sides of the divided boulevard roadway.
And it looks like I've also been able to find Tegan Ghani there from KW Cycling Academy. She is now sitting 13th. It's maybe 800 meters, 900 meters behind Lillian, so it looks like there's a nice tight battle going on there. Tegan's going to have to make up a little bit of distance if she wants to earn those points and come ahead of Lillian in this race and move up in the series points.
D racers, they'll be racing a total distance of 32.9 kilometers, Andrew. 2 full laps of the Richmond 2015 UCI road course.
Which means that our group is now on 1 to go as they are 17.5 kilometers into the race. So they have received the bell and are now heading towards the finish. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and make sure we can capture one of those riders coming in for the finish. On the screen right now, I've got Lucas Gertz, one of our riders who have been here since the beginning. Lucas, hope you're doing well out there. I know you like the name shout-out, so hopefully that will help you do really well in this race. Lucas is currently sitting 4th overall in our group. He's got 2 other D riders with them, so it looks like a podium finish in the D category for Lucas is certainly a possibility. As well as a good finish for himself as a U15 in the OCA series points.
Yes, and it's essential in these smaller groups, be they groups from the same category or an intermingled category, Andrew, to work together. It behooves them to do that, utilizing the drafting effect, and that's, of course, been programmed into the Zwift software so that they can take advantage of the draft sitting right behind a rider.
Just trying to see if I can pull up one of our other riders here on the screen before we move on to our women. Enrique Martins is one of our top U17 riders from the OBC club. He has been doing very well. He's a very, very strong rider. We should be seeing him in first place, I believe, if I pop on over to him. And yes, he is that one solo rider who is off the front in the D race. So good job, Enrique, for doing really, really well in this race. All right, Steve, why don't we take this time and head on over and check out how our women are doing. Let's pull it up here, and if you can, give us a rundown on what's happening in the series points, starting with our master women.
That's right. Thank you, Andrew. This is the E category for women, all women. So this comprises, as I mentioned previously, the Elite 1-2 women, the Elite 3 women, and the Master women. We had a total of 18 take to the line this morning for the start. In the Masters women category, Paulina Allen is currently in a commanding lead with 154 points. Shauna Novak is sitting in second, 139 points, and Hannah Spence is in third spot. So Allen, Novak, and Spence, 1, 2, 3 for the Master women. In the Elite 3 women's categories, Gabby Eady from Highgate Racing is in first place with 139 points. Dylan Baker from Attack Racing is sitting in second with 102. Holly Clark from Toronto Hustle in third with 87. And then in our Elite 1-2 category, Franny Jewett from Highgate Racing in the lead with 106. Ariane Arsenault from Dynamics is in second, and Gabby Eady from Highgate Racing in third. But Andrew, there has been some upgrades on that you had mentioned to me overnight in terms of categories that you wanted to add in, I believe.
That's right, Steve. So same thing that happened in our Elite 4 to Elite 3 group. We had two riders who were doing very, very well in the Elite 3 women's categories who deserved an upgrade. So they'll be racing as Elite 1-2 women for the remainder of the series. And as I'm sure everybody at home heard, that Gabby Eady is one of those riders from Highgate Racing. She's done really, really well. Brought over half of her points from the Elite 3 field, which means she was at 140 points in the Elite 3 group, and that will stay static, but I highly doubt that there will be much of a change in that over the next two races. We'll have to see what happens there. The other one being Holly Clark, a little bit down the list, having 88 points, bringing in 44 to the Elite 1-2 women's field. So there'll certainly be contenders now in this point series, especially Edie, who, if you take a look at the results from last week's race, you'll note that she was actually the sort of overall winner in the women's race between the Elite 1-2 women and the Elite 3 women, coming ahead of Franny Jewett in that race. So she certainly deserved that upgrade, and we'll see how this plays out. Only 36 points separate the two of them, so it'll be interesting to see if Edie is able to pull off an upset here.
So as you'd mentioned, Andrew, the D racers are on their final lap, but let's just check in with some of the race distances for the other categories. The Zwift A men, they're going to go 4 laps or 65 kilometers. The B Zwift B will be going 3 laps. Same for the Zwift C, they'll be going 3 laps, and the women's E category, they'll be going 3 laps, and the 3-lap race distance is almost 50 kilometers or 49.1 kilometers. These would be considered a little bit longer, Andrew, for Zwift racing. Most of the Zwift races check in at about 1 hour, usually about 40 minutes to an hour of racing. And that really speaks directly to the fitness needed to do well in these races, which is really 1 hour power or true FTP. You have to maximize that 1 hour power or your true FTP, get it to its highest level, and then be able to handle the surges in the pace throughout the race. So these are not long multi-hour races in Zwift. They're usually 30 minutes to 1 hour, maybe a little bit longer than an hour, a bit over an hour in total duration and distance.
That's true, Steve. And while we're covering that topic, let's head on over to our E-women's race. Right now I've got the very own Paulina Allen here leading out the group of racers in the women's race. She's sitting second overall. It looks like she doesn't have her usual companion, Shauna Novak, with her, so we'll have to see where she is. and that will certainly help her increase her lead. But just speaking to what you were talking about earlier, Steve, in regards to the race length, one of the things we wanted to do was to make the races a little bit longer to hit that sort of 90-minute mark for most of the groups when we can, so that it doesn't turn into sort of this 1 hour power fest kind of FTP-based racing, where it's a little bit longer, so you have to think a little bit more strategically about your power usage in those 90 minutes, as opposed to just sort of brute forcing it for 45 like you might in a crit scenario. We even talked about going a little bit longer, maybe even hitting that 2 hour mark, but some people just don't want to race for 2 hours on their bikes indoors on a trainer, save for those few riders like Bruce Bird and Travis Samuel and Brad Radford, who did that 24-hour ride for COVID a month and a half ago. I can't even imagine riding 3 hours on a trainer, and they did 24. So kudos to those guys and the money they raised for the fight against COVID-19.
Well, Travis rode just over 1,000 kilometers, Andrew. To just put that in perspective, in 24 hours, he took a quick nap, I think somewhere along the way, just a power nap, but he was more or less on the trainer, on the bike for 24 hours and pedaled just over 1,000 kilometers in total on Zwift. And I believe that stands as a world record at this point in time. It was being verified by the Guinness World Record folks when I chatted with Travis a couple weeks ago. A ratification will take a while. And who knows, with the way everything's going on Zwift, with so many people riding on the platform, that record might be broken before Guinness even ratifies it as a world record. But kudos indeed to young Travis Samuel for that outstanding performance a few weeks ago, going over 1,000 kilometers in 24 hours of riding on Zwift.
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is amazing, and those records do fall fairly quickly. For those of you in the audience who are familiar with the hour record on the track, when the UCI changed the rules about what qualified for the hour record in the last decade, there was this huge sort of interest in beating the hour record again and setting the new standards. I'm not entirely familiar with the order, but I certainly know there were the big sort of male road athletes that took a turn at it, like Bradley Wiggins and Jens Voigt. But then the distance kept getting shattered by every subsequent sort of attempt at it. So these sort of record events certainly are tenuous at best, in that they can easily be taken away by somebody else, even just by a few fractions of a second or meters, as is in the case with the hour records. So.
What is that phrase? Championship medals are for life, and records get broken, or something along those lines. So,
no, I like that. It looks like we can see in the screen here on the right, we're still following Paulina Allen, our lead master rider, with no other masters or elite women from our group. You can see at the bottom of the screen, it's not visible on the stream, on our stream, but on the screen of Zwift. Lillian Pelosa, our U15 rider, is about 20 seconds back from Allen right now, and it looks like she's got about 24.5 kilometers. So we might be looking at an end for the D riders. So why don't we take this opportunity, if I can find Enrique Martins again, to see if he is about to finish. The D riders only doing 2 laps, as you mentioned before. Folks will have to bear with us. The application to find riders isn't the quickest thing. Especially when Saturday rolls around and many riders get on the system and are Zwifting, whether recreationally or racing-wise. It's certainly going to bog down the system.
And Zwift has really had to up their game, and they have, Andrew, to accommodate this massive surge in users, ridership, racing, events, in a very short period of time, of course, helped along by the COVID-19 worldwide pandemic that shut everything down, shut all racing, and for many in Europe, shut all outdoor riding down for a month or more, 6 weeks. In Spain, there was no outdoor riding allowed, and it was only been in the last couple of weeks that countries such as Italy, Spain, France, for the most part, riders were allowed to get outdoors and ride.
And I hope that everybody that is doing that now, especially with the Ontario regulations being recently lifted from 5 to 10, please be sure to be safe and socially distance and follow all the recommendations when it comes to your new social circles, because we want to keep the spread of the COVID-19 virus to a minimum.
That's right. All the new rules, protocols, everything available on the OCA website for your reading and purview.
Okay, so it looks like I've found Enrique Martins here. He's managed to find himself with a nice group to ride with here of C riders, and he is still sitting in first overall, so certainly getting a benefit by having a nice group to ride with, keeping his speed up, currently rolling on 42 kilometers an hour, but only having to put out 150 watts. So he certainly is taking advantage of some of the drafting physics available in Zwift. 28.6 kilometers into the race. So we're looking at maybe less than 5 kilometers to go before the finish. Looks like they are just past the hairpin turn and coming up to the cobbled climb section. We'll stay here with Martins as he'll be the first finisher on course today, very likely.
Martins was the winner last week, Andrew. In 52 minutes was his winning time. Just talking about that duration limit. Most of the races finished a little under or just slightly over 1 hour of racing last week. They'll be going a little bit longer, I think, this week.
Yep. Look at that, the grade has just shot up to about 9%, and Martins is still able to hold almost 20 kilometers an hour, just effortlessly breezing up this hill, passing by all the spectators. I'm sure if he could wave his hand on his avatar, he would signal that he's doing well and likes the support. Taking a look at the overhead view here, Martins doesn't have anyone with him. He's just powering away from the group that he was with. Makes it look so easy online, doesn't it, Steve?
Yeah, he's definitely the class of this particular grouping.
And there you go. He is through the KOM overhead inflatable as he increases speed. Coming down the descent, heading towards the final climb.
Yeah, there's those two really steep climbs, Andrew, right in the final few kilometers. And if there's a group of, I'd say, 10 or 15 riders that go into that final 2 or 3K in any of the groups that are racing out onto the road, those two final brutal climbs are going to be the decider, because the finish comes right near the top of the second of the cobbled climbs.
2K to go for Martins now as he is powering down this descent, 50 kilometers an hour plus. Once again, no one with him here. He's just riding away from his closest competition. Last time we checked, that was Sagan Gertz. We'll see if we can capture his finish as well and see what happens with the Pelosa-Gagne duel going on there. Martins opting to use his power up here, the Feather Light on the final climb. That's a good choice, although I can't imagine it'll help him that much. Riders in these categories tend to be fairly light to begin with, so their average watts per kilogram tends to be fairly high. Look at that, 10%, 16 kilometers an hour. I'd be falling over sideways.
Yeah, it's super steep, 10%, and the cobbles don't help either.
Yeah, can you imagine if it was rainy out there too? That would be carnage on the street. Back tires slipping out because of the forward weight on the climb, and yeah, that would certainly turn it into more of a cross specialist kind of a race.
And there's a few twists and turns as well, so it is not a climb for the faint of heart.
That is
the
true.
Twists and the turns not so much of a factor here in Zwift world, but certainly in the real world. As you had mentioned, Andrew, if the cobbles were wet, turning of that front wheel, if you hit the cobble the wrong way, it might sweep right out from underneath you.
Less than a K to go here for Martins, giving us a masterclass in U17 racing. Nighttime here in the virtual version of Richmond, Virginia, as Martins comes around the final turn to see the finish line in 500 meters. Could be a nice straight shot. Lots of the beauty scenery of downtown Richmond here, going under the big highway overpass. Oh, and it looks like I may have the overall distance wrong. I get some of the data when I'm setting up these courses from some third-party websites based on what they say. I was given a 32.9. Oh, there we go. So I'm doing math wrong. So we still have a kilometer to go at this point because Martins is sitting at 31.9 kilometers. So, and there is that final cobbled climb that he's got to make it up. We'll see if he has another power up or he's just going to have to go raw energy to get up the course here. As he's going up the last climb here, you can see a few of our riders, Albert Kleinekink, William Trishuk from our C group. He'll be joining them. They, of course, have one more lap to go. It was Glenn Gunderman, also about 15 seconds ahead of Martins here. So looks like we'll be tuning into our B race next, as the B race and C racers are doing roughly the same. B, C's, and E's, as you mentioned earlier, are all doing the same distance at 3 laps. So I suspect it's going to be a B, C, and then E finish. Although with the strength at the front end of the women's race with Paulina Allen, there's a good chance that she may end up finishing the race before some of the C's, even with a 2-minute deficit at the start.
Yeah, Allen most likely is coming up to the finish, Andrew, of that, just based on timing. And a secret visual that I have is coming up to the end of the second lap for her, so into the third and final lap for the women.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then she's already definitely caught up to many of the riders in the C group. So we may have to do the finish in the B, E, C order, and then join our A racers at the very end to find out how well our few Ontario riders have done up against the Chilean contingent there. Martin's getting deep on the bike right now, digging deep for that final finish as he's about 300 meters, sprinting with no one around, but still putting in a beautiful finish, coming in first overall in the D group in his category as well. And he's putting on the Aero Boost right now to get a little bit of speed at 41 kilometers an hour now, coming into this finish, out of the saddle, sprinting like the class act that he is, to a nice big crowd cheering finish for Enrique Martins, 32.9 kilometers in 48.22. Let's head on back and see how our other riders are doing. I was trying to get Sagan Gertz up here on the list, and it is not getting any love. So I'm going to have to see if I can find him moving back through the group.
Just you're welcome to Alex Martins, who is chiming in there on the message board. Andrew,
yep.
You're more than welcome. We are very happy to bring you this coverage. A great race from your son here to take another win here today.
Lucas wearing the fancy digital camo jersey, and he's now finished the final climb and is heading towards the finish with about 300 meters to go, and he is sitting second overall. Lucas, keep powering through, and you'll get that overall group silver and the top in placing in the U15 men. A little bit of competition there from the Ds, slipping to third right now. Lucas is going to have to put down the power if he wants to finish. 200 less than 100 meters to go now. And we've got one of the riders from France just putting it down in front of him. It doesn't look like Lucas is going to be able to do it unless he puts a little bit more jump into this one. As the French rider rides away, Lucas might have to be satisfied with third overall.
And that's a good visual, or was a good visual for that long, flat, maybe 200 or 300 run into the finish. Andrew, if we have a larger group come together at the top of those two brutal last climbs, they could be sprinting it out over this final long straight run in to the finish.
Okay, on screen right now, I've got Tegan Gagne in the D race here. Let's head on over there. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing your last name right. Tegan started sitting 31.8 kilometers, so about a kilometer to go. And I'm trying to see here in the list if we can see Pelosa as well. Last time we checked in, Lillian was a little bit ahead of Gagne. I have to check my start list here to see how it's spelled. Type it in correctly. There's two L's in Lillian. That's why I'm not getting it right. Apologies. My kingdom for a better interface. There we go. Oh, it looks like she is not that far ahead. If Gagne is sitting 14th, Pelosa now is 13th. Only a few hundred meters ahead. Pelosa's on the final climb at the moment. Looking down the list here, the last rider on the Zwift nearby is about 18 seconds back from Pelosa, so it looks like Pelosa will end up taking the win if she can hold this pace. Putting out 4.1 watts per kilogram right now. Out of the saddle, at the top of the climb. Looking good form. And she's rounding the corner now. 500 meters to go for Pelosa.
Once you go over a certain watts per kilogram, your avatar does get up out of the saddle.
Yes, we were making a joke about that during the London race with that big climb on Box Hill. Some points, some riders don't have the power or end up riding it up at very, very slow kilometers per hour, 2, 3, 4 kilometers per hour. And we were joking that the avatar, if once you've dropped on a climb down to a certain speed, that the avatar should get off and walk. As they might end up going faster. Pelosa now dropping it. Looking for a nice big finish. Gagne nowhere in the list, so it looks like this one is going to go to Pelosa. A big finish for Lillian, crossing the rainbow stripes of the finish line there.
And again, that longer flat run in to the finish. So we'll note this in these other races, or in these races where we've got riders off of the front. This could become a tactical, situation in some of our latter finishing races. If they are coming into that finish in a group, we could have a little sprint into the finish line. Haven't had one yet.
All right, heading on over to our B racers. I've got Graham Page in sight right now. He is with the lead group of our B racers. We got Chantel in the studio there letting us know that there's a B Wiggins riding the race. I wonder if it's Bradley. or just somebody who has the same name or just wants to be sounding cool. So if you are in this race and watching the live stream, Sir Bradley, thanks for coming on out and making this race exciting. Looking at our race right now, we've got the B group on the road right now with Graham Page in our sights. He's sitting third overall, along with some of our few other Canadian riders. Derek D'Angelo, Brian Kingston is with the group there as well. Who else do we have?
Graham Page is in first place, Andrew, in the Elite 3 men's category. So well placed today as this race goes on to potentially bag some more points and pad his lead in that category.
Also got Diogo Maya in the group as well. He was sitting in second place when I clicked over to him, and it looks like there is one more rider who we can't quite see in the B group, who is off the front. I'm going to see if he is close by. I'll just scroll ahead. There's lots of A racers ahead of the B group. And yes, there is another rider. So that is Roy Thomas, independent, sitting in first right now. And it looks like he has a fairly significant lead on that group, about a minute or so, with only about 5 kilometers to go as they're hitting the 44.5 kilometer mark. And this race for them is 49.1 kilometers. So if he can hold that minute gap for 5 kilometers, then victory will certainly be in his sights.
Well, at these speeds, Andrew, it would be about 5-6 minutes of racing to go. And so in theory, that we're seeing, this is a large chase group. And if that is the situation on the road, they are only racing here for second and third and lower ranking spots.
That is true. And Thomas does have the assistance of a large group of A riders. So he isn't out there alone. So once again, through the vagaries of the racing system here on Zwift, another rider may be able to take advantage and do well for themselves. Here they are coming around the final hairpin turn. Still taking a look at Diogo Maya from Bateman, sitting fourth overall, closely joined by Derek D'Angelo and Graham Page, some of our top riders in this group.
Yeah, they're coming up to that hairpin turn at the far end of the course. And this is the time in a race, any race, be it Zwift or be it the real world, with 4 to 5 kilometers of riding left, and you're in a large group like this, you got to be thinking, when do I make my move, or do I just sit in and roll the cards and the dice, at the end? If you are a super strong, rider, maybe you make a move to get away off of the front. What we're finding in Zwift racing is when you get 4 to 5 seconds ahead, it's almost impossible to close down that 4 to 5 second gap. So that's usually the time gap that you want to get. And if you're keeping it full gas and on the rivet, and you can build on that 4 or 5 second gap, that's what you want to do. But you have to put out a huge amount of effort to do that. And here they go on to the first of the final climbs. It varies between 5%, maxing out at just over 10%, twisting and turning as they climb up out of the valley.
Just continuing on what you were talking about there in terms of strategy and power usage here, even though the only interaction that you have with this world is the power output or speed output that you're putting through your trainer, into the system. A savvy rider can certainly take advantage of some of the other mechanics in the course and put that towards a victory. Last week, one of the things you missed was in Innsbruck when our A group riders, specifically the Elite 1-2 group, was a fairly well-fought battle. With a couple of laps to go, Bruce Bird and White from Draft Racing and Hamilton United, respectively, managed to put a large gap on their competition. And it was certainly fairly significant, maybe about 45 seconds, 50 seconds, and they ended up going into the final few kilometers with that breakaway. They had a few other riders with them who were outside of the OCA series. But then one of the things I said right at the beginning of the race was, if somebody really wants to make a well-timed attack, the best place to do it would be right before the final turn onto the bridge before the finish stretch. And what do you know it? Bruce Bird does exactly that. Puts a couple of seconds on White and rolls in for the win. So, good knowledge of the course, knowledge of the mechanics will certainly help you do really well in this race. We've got D'Angelo on screen right now, 47.1 kilometers into this race, meaning there's 2K to go as he comes through the second last overhead climb. More climb coming up, and we still have quite a few riders here altogether. Graham Page, Diogo Maia, Derek D'Angelo, Brian Kingston, and we've got someone by the name of N. Brown from Canada, but they are not on the start list. If they are from Ontario, we always encourage you to head on over to ontariocycling.org to check out the registration form and sign up so that you can be counted in the results and do the series points as well. That's where you'll also find, like I said, the results as well. After this race, head on over to ontariocycling.org and check out the results. We usually have them posted within a few hours after the race, as we have to do a little bit of filtering to remove all the Chilean riders and such to make sure that the results are Ontario only. And while you're on the web, if you are enjoying this live stream, be sure to hit like and subscribe on the channel so you're notified every time we go live. And if you do want to see this continue going and you don't mind giving a little donation, heading on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events and put a little donation our way to support this stream and keep things going. You can do that as well while you're surfing for the results. Looking at Derek D'Angelo right now, 48.4 kilometers into the race. Now we are heading into the final straight cobbled climb. So it's going to be interesting to see who it's going to be. D'Angelo, Page, Kingston, or Maia, all neck and neck in this race. It is going to come down to our first heads-up sprint of the day. Steve.
Yes, and that final 300 or 400 meter run into the finish could be the decider here. If they do make it all over those final brutal, cobbled climbs together. We've not seen a sprint finish for the finish line yet today, and this could be it, Andrew.
And they just rounded the heading up this big climb. 8% on the clock right now. Speeds are dropping slowly below 20 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, the watts are creeping up in the 300s, the low 400s as efforts start to be maximized here. They can sense and smell the finish, and no one wants to play their card too early here, but you don't want to be dropped from the group either.
Yes, it looks like the wattage is holding consistent for most of the riders, around 400 watts or so. They're halfway up the climb now. This race may just go to the rider who comes across the top first if they aren't completely gassed from this climb. Currently, Graham Page is in front. D'Angelo and Maia right behind him. Brian Kingston slipping back a few meters. Let's take a look at the overhead view there. You can see the breakdown now. It's a straight line of riders coming back together in a group right now. After they finish the climb, speeds are going to start moving up now. Only a few hundred meters left. On the map up top, you can see the final sprint finish line. Here we go. They're all looking at each other. Some power-ups are going. Looks like D'Angelo's out front. Them. Absolutely. Maia at D'Angelo out front right now. Page slipping back a little bit. See if we can get that overhead view. Looks like D'Angelo is powering. He's out of the saddle. Look at that. He's got 2 meter separation. Looks like it's going to be D'Angelo, Maya, Page. Look at this sprint finish. Don't look back. Oh, it's changed position. And they're through the line now. I think that was it. I think it was D'Angelo, Maya. Page might have snuck in for the sprint. We didn't have a good camera angle on that one. But be sure to check out the results once again, at ontariocycling.org within a few hours to see how well you did in Ontario.
Well, that was good strategic use of the power-ups by those riders coming up to the line who had them left, Andrew. That's where you want to use them, right at the end, to maximize your advantage, the gamification, if you will, of Zwift racing.
Moving on over to our rider selector here, trying to pull up our women's race. Oh, there we go. I naturally ended up over with our Elite 1-2 women. So let's head on over on screen now. I've got Franny Jewett in our sights, and she is currently sitting 6th overall in the E race. Sean back is with this group. Gabby Eady, and it looks like we've even got Bruce Bird from our Elite 1-2 men mixing it up a little bit with our chase group of Elite and Master women. I tried to pull up Paulina on the system here. It wasn't letting me, but I'm assuming she's still far ahead. Let's see if I can do it now.
No. While you're doing that, Andrew, just a reminder that Franny Jewett is leading the senior 1-2 women's category. Some good solid racing for her over the course of the season. She had never raced on Zwift before the start of the OCA Indoor Race Series, so this was all new to her, and has kind of learned the ropes as she's gone along here week to week.
And it looks like I found Paulina Allen. She is still working with the American rider C. Nelson, who's got the little polka dot jersey beside her name. So I guess she's also doing well on the climbing here in the race. 43.9 kilometers for Allen. She's coming up to the final hairpin bend. And let's see if I can determine how much distance she has on her closest competitors here. Looks like about a minute and a half of a gap now between Allen and Jewett, Eady, Novak group.
So that's the chase group that Franny Jewett is leading. Allen out in front. And just needs to keep it rubber side down, Andrew, from here to the finish.
One disadvantage for Allen is she doesn't have the large group of riders that Jewett, Eady, and Novak are with, so she will have to continue to power hard as well if she wants to maintain that gap.
That's true. She does have the one other rider with her, but Allen currently in the lead. Starting to count down the kilometers here. An hour and 6 minutes of racing time has elapsed for Allen. Heading towards another overall win here amongst the women, and of course, a win in the Masters category as well. Allen in first place in that Master Women's category, 154 points. Shauna Novak, who is in the chase group, sits in second with 139 points. And Hannah Spence, also from Highgate Racing, in third spot with 124 points. And now the climbing begins for Allen.
Let's see if I can pop up to her on screen here. There she is. On the switchback cobbles, Alan riding alone. Still putting out fairly good wattage in the high 200s. Nice overhead shot here. You can see she is all alone. That can be helpful for some, but also discouraging for others. Hopefully she does well on solo rides and can hold on this gap now.
And the twists and the turns of this cobbled climb carry on. Max is out at about 12%, Andrew.
Yep. As many of our viewers know, Paulina is in the studio with you as well, and I'm pretty sure they could have just heard her effort there. We can hear that on the live stream there. So she is certainly putting down the hurt on this climb.
She is up over the top here.
One more climb to go for Alan as she takes a bit of a break here to recover on this downhill section. Let's check in with our chase group right now. It looks like they've put a little bit of time on. So 27 there. Minus 54. I'd say about a minute 20. Once again, the controls that we have aren't the best. I have to do a little bit of math here on the side. But we've got our chase group here, Edie, Novak, and Jewett on the cobbles. That's what we're seeing on screen right now. They are making their way around the first turn. We got the overhead view here. Once again, they're joined by Bruce Bird. Let's just click on since he's.
Well, that's a good wheel to sit on. If you can sit on Bruce's wheel,
certainly
you'll be doing well.
I just clicked on his profile here, and it looks like he is in first place right now of our A group, and there's not too many riders with him. There's another A rider 10 seconds back, but that rider has only done 29 kilometers. So it looks like Bird has once again done it with a impactful performance with a time trial effort to go and win this race. So we'll check in with him once again when his race is almost over. Actually, if we look at some of those distances there, he is currently sitting 62.1 kilometers, and in the race they are doing 65. So it looks like the A race and the E race might be finishing at the same time with Bird now.
Could be.
As moving ahead, he at this power, he may even catch up to Alan, and they might finish together across that line. He's only got a few more kilometers to go. One more climb. Moving on ahead, see if I can grab Alan again. Here we go, 47 kilometers, only 2K to go. She's going down the big descent now, hitting 70K an hour.
Yeah, max speeds down here after those two really tough cobbled climbs. The finish line awaits. And if you're a rider out off the front and alone, like Paulina Allen is right now, you are all in to the finish line. And as you had said, Andrew, it'd be interesting if the Master A men's leader, Bruce Bird, will make a catch here before we reach the finish
and
for both of them.
He just popped up on the riders nearby screen. He is now 1 minute 56 seconds behind Paulina.
Yes, I could. Yeah, I can see him here on my screen as well, Andrew. So
one of the neat things about the Zwift application here, Steve, is that you can pick several different angles to show when you're watching yourself or other riders. I currently have the first-person view, so for those of you at home, what you're seeing on screen right now is exactly what Alan is seeing in her perspective, as if she was riding on these virtual roads.
The open road in front of her, indeed.
Coming up to the T intersection now, where a right turn puts you on the final climb. Even though we've got Bird closing in on Allen. There is little chance now that our chase group has of making that gap and coming into the finish. So once again, as you stated earlier, all Allen needs to do is keep the rubber side down and roll across that finish line for a first overall in the Master Women and in the Ontario race as well. The American rider off screen right now is currently sitting in first, so she won't get that title, but the other two I'm sure will be good.
Well, it's the triple whammy of the climbs in the final few kilometers here, the two cobbled climbs and now the paved road climb. This one not quite as brutal as the cobbled climbs, but saps the legs, and then it is the 300 or 400 meter flat run in mercifully to the finish line. An hour and 13 minutes elapsed on the race clock.
And there Allen goes, coming around the final bend, 300 meters or so to go. We're currently watching Allen on screen right now. Getting some commentary from the studio here from Chantal Thompson. We'll get her to do an interview after the race is over to find out what it was like in the women's race.
And this is this flat little run in to the finish. Andrew, and I'll let you take it over from here right to the line.
There we go. Allen with just about 100 meters to go. She can see the UCI banner in her sights. She knows that Sweet Relief is super close right now. No other women behind her within at least 30 seconds. Bruce Bird is almost going to catch up, but he did not quite make it. We'll click into him quickly right after she crosses the line. If her avatar could put her hand up, I'm sure she would. Here we go across the rainbow stripes. Paulina Allen taking number 1. And here we go on screen quickly. Bruce Bird as well with about 100 meters to go. No other A riders nearby. Once again, Bruce Bird is going to be coming in for the win. Here's his view right now. This is what it looks like to be a number 1 rider in the A group as Bruce Bird is crossing the finish line, the rainbow stripes in first place. Good job, Bruce. Second place, we've got Andrew Bazell from our Master 1 men's field. He'll also be the first place master coming across the line. You can see right now he'll be coming in for the finish. Nice, beautiful overhead view of downtown Richmond. Here he goes through the finish line. Bazell coming in second in our group, first overall in the Master men. Let's see if we can find other group. Here we go. This looks like Anton Varabai just crossing the line right now. Brad Parsons coming across the line. He looks like going to take second place in our Master 1 field. Good job, Brad. Moving down the list. See if I can find our women. Here are our women. Shauna Novak has just finished the climb, so we're going to watch Novak, Edie, and Jewett come across the line here. Novak is a Master woman, no competition directly from Edie and Jewett, but she is riding alone, and it looks like she'll be crossing the line second overall in the women's field, as well as the Master women. Novak and Allen have been strong riders, dominating the women's fields. Even though they're in the Masters field, they also have been doing extremely well in the women's group overall. Here she is coming across the line. And we've got Franny Jewett and Gabby Edie in a 2-3 group. So that was our women's finish. Let me just quickly pop down the group here to see if there are A riders that we can follow as well. May have passed a few of them. And any other E riders. Hannah Spence, I found here. She is now coming up to the final climb. She's sitting 8th overall in the women, and she's also our Masters group. So I think Hannah Spence is going to finish 3rd overall with the Master women. Great job there. And you can see.
And that'll allow Spence to. Sorry, Andrew. It allows Spence to remain in 3rd spot in that Master women's OCA category.
And she certainly has a large gap. The next rider down the list is Holly Clark from Toronto Hustle. As you'll recall, Steve, Holly Clark is one of our recent upgrades into the E12 field, and it looks like she will be going home with a 3rd place overall. There doesn't seem to be any other Elite 1-2 women with her, so she's done really well today with that upgrade, finishing 3rd in the group there. Franny Jewett, the only original E12 before the upgrades of Edie and Clark, finishing in the top 3. So that certainly was the correct move to get into that category.
The good news for Jewett, she will retain the lead in the 1-2 category for the senior women with that strong ride again for her today.
About 15 seconds back from Clark, we've got Jojo Rusinek. He is one of our Master 1 men. If I'd been counting correctly, it looks like he'll be finishing 3rd overall. That's good for Rusinek, who I think is, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, sitting 2nd overall in the Master 1 men's group. So that finish will certainly help him keep his point status or at least close to it.
That's correct. He's a few points back of Brad Parsons. Brad Parsons, with his win today, or his place today, will pad his points in that Master 1's category. But Rusinek, he's in a tight battle with Oaken Wark for 3rd overall in that Master men's category for the points series. But Rusinek getting some good points today. He'll be able to move up ahead or further ahead of Wark on points today with that strong finish.
So you can see here on screen that Rusinek just got passed by a large group of A riders from Chile, which also contained, let me just pull up my start list here. We had Adam Hawley from Waterloo Cycling Club in that group, and I think Rusinek saw that, and he got out of the saddle and put down the wattage, knowing that if he wants to hold on to that 3rd place, he certainly needed to get back into that group. So now it's a 1-2 Hawley Rusinek going up the final climb, battling it out for 3rd place in our Master 1s group. Here we go, and they are together. Yes, certainly they saw, Rusinek saw Hawley, and he had to make that move, and he's sitting right on his wheel right now. Let's take a look at his view. So he's got Hawley right there, right in front of him, just sitting right on his wheel. You'd almost say he was half-wheeling. But of course that doesn't matter in this world, as we saw a few riders plow through some concrete pillars earlier in the race. These very forgiving in terms of physics when it comes to smashing into things. Hawley putting on a few meters on a Rusinek. This might be part of his strategy. He's putting out 8.4 kilometers. And it looks like Hawley's just powering away. Rusinek isn't able to answer that, and he's dropped his wattage. He's basically given up on that, settling for 4th place overall. Here's the view of Hawley coming into the finish. So Hawley taking 3rd, and then Rusinek in 4th. Still a good finish. A lot of riders finishing here, dropping off the list. I'm going to have to get out of this view now quickly. And let's see, we have our A riders, our B riders, and our E riders finishing. Let's see if we can find some C riders. They should be coming up to the finish soon if they already haven't. Here is Tony Peters, I believe, pulling up a list here. There we go, Tony Peters coming into the finish right now. I don't have an overall place for him, and he has just finished, so it looks like we may not have been able to see our C race. So it looks like the timing was just right, Steve, on all of these races. Only able to catch a few of these groups finishing, as the expected speeds and powers of all these groups were, roughly about the same, in that they're going to be ending around 90 minutes with this particular course. Here we have another Bateman's rider here from the E12 group. He's looking to finish. He's climbing up the hill. But I don't think we're going to be able to find too many more of these sort of top 10 finishes. So why don't we call it for the day on the live stream, and why don't we wrap it up and start with a nice summary of the race. Steve, why don't I let you take that one?
Well, it was great racing on the 2015 Richmond course, and as we saw, large groups to start, but those 3 brutal climbs that come right in the final 3 kilometers, 3 to 4 kilometers of that course really were the separator. They separated the field early on, and it was for the most part solo riders and 1s and 2s and 3s coming up to that long 300 or 400 meter run into the finish to the line. And most of our top riders who have been, up there in the standings, no surprise with the results. Bruce Bird, Paulina Allen, Brad Parsons, and several other riders doing extremely well again today. Nice to see. And our junior riders as well. The youth riders, we're hoping to build on that. You and I talked about that, Andrew, possibly next winter, a more substantial series of Zwift racing going on throughout the country. Canada's well placed for that with the winter conditions we get in the wintertime. Zwift racing could become a really big thing for riders next winter. I know there's several groups within the provincial cycling associations, even at the national cycling level, possibly looking into that for next winter. So exciting things to come. This has been all a bit of a test run in the early stages of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, to get Zwift racing up and running, and we're looking for bigger and better things down the road a bit.
Very good. Great analysis there by Steve Fleck. And once again, thank you for joining us once again here on the OCA IRRS live stream. It's been a pleasure to have you commentating and providing some insight and great commentary for the races. So thanks for that. All right, with that, we're going to call the end of the live stream now. It's been great being with you, everyone. Thanks for joining the stream. Once again, be sure to check out the results as they are posted on the OCA website. That's ontariocycling.org. We should have them up within a few hours, and then updated series points early next week. We like to leave a little bit of lag between that to make sure that everybody has a chance to verify that the results are indeed correct and we didn't miss anyone. And like and subscribe to this channel so that you get notified as we come up to our final race in the series next Saturday at 10:30 a.m. It's the last race in the series. We'll have to see if we're going to be continuing on after that, so stay tuned for more updates, and we'll talk more about that next week. But once again, be sure to check in with this channel to find out what's happening. As well, if you want to see this and support this channel, if you had a good time and you want to help out, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events, and you can donate a few bucks there in support of this channel. So once again, thank you very much. My name is Andrew Paradowski, and we will see you all next week as we go into our final race series here at the Ontario Cycling Association Indoor Road Racing Series.